Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Legion Season 2, Episode 9. It's called Chapter 17, so full spoilers for the episode as always. This was an interesting episode, I think, for a couple of just structural reasons.
I would go as far as to say this is a bad episode.
I actually don't disagree with, well, I think all the Melanie stuff does not land for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that this episode in itself isn't that great because of, the Melanie stuff isn't working. But then, in context of the season pacing, I think it's a mess of where this is. I know we are getting an episode 11 now, but I feel like that we need an episode 11 because we've done one too many of these hyper-focused episodes now, and it's like we ran out of time.
That's not entirely true. I actually know what happened with the extra episode.
Oh, go on.
It was basically just going to be one big double episode, but it got so long that they split it into two regular episodes.
Fair enough.
So this has nothing to do with this episode. The having an episode 11 is just to do with how big episode 10 was becoming.
If anything, I think that's an even bigger complaint because this should not be the episode before the finale. It doesn't. I know we end at the right place, but it doesn't build to a season ending in any way, in my opinion.
You're actually more harsh than I was expecting coming in. I am pretty down on the Melanie stuff, and I think it's a really weird episode because it kind of like I was so happy when it cut to like Carrie and Kerry, and then we got Lenny stuff.
There was a worry that it was going to be her the whole episode.
Because that first 10-minute chunk, I wasn't feeling a lot of because I felt like it was just spinning its wheels. A lot of it was scenes we've seen before, like the scene with Sid where she's giving her sort of philosophy. That was something we had like way back in episode 1 or 2 of the season. And I think ultimately the explanation we didn't even really need, right? So Oliver's in her head. Oliver, or Shadow King using Oliver, is in her head and manipulating her, right? We kind of already got that last week, and I feel like they spent a long time in this episode showing us that we didn't really necessarily need.
No, and I think it's weird that everything for Melanie this season... last season she had stuff to do. This season, everything about her has been dependent on a relationship with Oliver.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I really like that.
I mean, I feel like the amount that's dependent upon Oliver is the same as last season. The problem is that everything else she had last season has been taken away. So it's just left with that. Like, that's all that's left.
She had other stuff last season. That was my point. Whereas here, it's just Oliver and that's it.
Because, so... I wouldn't necessarily call the episode bad overall. I think it's a weird place in the season to be doing this. I don't mind being away from David. I actually think it's nice to jump to the other characters. I just think the Melanie portion, which is a good third or so of the episode, if not a bit more than that, it wasn't particularly satisfying to watch, didn't really feel needed, and just felt like padding.
No, that's true.
The stuff with Carrie and Lenny, I thought was all pretty good. I mean, those were easily two subplots that could have been slotted into last week's episode, maybe, say.
Yeah, they were okay on their own. It's just, again, this is more the straw that broke the camel's back of, okay, this is one too many of these episodes, this hyper-focus, just focusing on, okay, no, here's this thing this season, where I feel like we've had so many of them now, clumped mostly in the middle of the season.
Well, this is where the thing I'm getting at, though, is I don't think this is a hyper-focused episode. It starts off like it's going to be, and then abandons it about 20 minutes in. 15, 20 minutes in.
Even the other plots, I don't feel that there's that much advancement in them. Lenny's probably got the most. But, the Carrie stuff, I feel like we're getting hints of their stuff, but again... This season, there's been almost none of their dynamic. We got a little bit at the start of the season.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying, though, is that it's not hyper-focused, because the other hyper-focused episodes didn't even have the other characters show up, unless it was absolutely relevant to what the hyper-focused plot was.
It's not quite to the extent that the other ones were, no.
So that's why I disagree this is not a hyper-focused episode. It abandons that. In fact, not only does it abandon it, not only does it start cutting away to other characters, it actually kind of just goes away from Melanie almost entirely for a nice big chunk of time. She comes back in at the end, but there's a long stretch where she's actually gone from the episode.
Well, no, this is why I still think it's hyper-focused in the sense that it's not just one thing, but when we follow a plot, we follow that for an extended period, and that's it, and then we move on to the next one. They're not cutting around, they're not we're not jumping between plots and having it paced throughout an episode. It's here's the Melanie section, here's the Carrie section, here's the Lenny section.
Well, Carrie and Lenny swapped around.
Only a little bit. Not as much.
I feel like you're getting into semantics here because you're determined in this being a hyper focus episode. And
this is just the way it felt when I was watching it. It really felt like much longer extension scenes than usual.
I thought it started off like it was going to be hyper focused, and then I just abandoned it completely. Once it shifted away, which by the way, I really like the shot that it shifts to. Actually, see when it cuts to Carrie, and Carrie she's punching the boxing bag.
Yeah.
And she jumps off over the ledge and jumps down next to Carrie. I thought that was a really nice shot, just on its own. It was good stuff. I like the Lenny stuff and the Carrie stuff enough that I'm not outright going to call this a bad episode. I think that's maybe being a bit harsh. There was stuff here to enjoy. There was stuff here to get from. I thought the Lenny stuff in particular, with Amy kind of still being in her head in a way. And kind of goading her into being a good person, like, because that whole thing where she's trolling her essentially. She's like, are you a good person? Are you a good person? Because Lenny's been back to her life. She's found her house full of junkies. She's mixing in quite nicely back into her whole life. But ultimately, like she kind of then agrees, and I think it's interesting that she's manipulated into it by Amy in her head saying that she does mean something to David. And Lenny's even a little bit jealous, and she's like, what about Miss Perfect Sydney? So she's jealous of Sydney. But she's like, no, if he wants help, sure, I'll do it. Like, she gets talked into it that way. I think that's interesting. And I liked, when the car disappearing was one of those out there Legion kind of moments. And then when she does get out the car in the desert, I'm like, okay, we saw this glimpse. Like, her standing in front of the car was one of the things we saw in the plans. And likewise, I like Carrie and Carrie realising that David had put a plan in their head, and they go to initiate it. They grab the device out the locker, and they find the blue car and go. Despite the fact that Carrie's never driven before.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed that she was annoyed that the restaurant they went to, next to the drop-off point, did not have the cream soda, which she has come to enjoy. Probably the one beverage she has tasted thus far.
I can approve of that. Cream soda's fantastic. I'm a big fan.
It's vile. I want no part of it, but that's okay. People can be different.
So good.
I respect Carrie too much to insult her for liking cream soda.
You'll insult me for liking it, though, won't you?
Oh, absolutely. No holds barred. I'll jump right in.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Nah, I would agree it's probably the weakest episode of the season, and I think the Melanie stuff, because I think I expected to come out of this episode after last week's ending that okay, we'll get kind of the other side of her thing, and it'll add a lot more to it. And I feel like it didn't really add anything. I feel like that entire montage where she's just breathing in the fumes from the kettle, the teapot.
Yeah, the whole thing is, she was just high for the last 2 weeks, essentially.
Well, it's not just that. It's like Oliver or Shadow King pretending to be Oliver in her head.
Yeah, but the idea that she didn't even notice that what was going on because she was so high.
Oh yeah, she's been out of it, yeah. And then Oliver in her head came in, and we see, and I like how they kind of manipulate her though. Like there is small moments of creativity in there where she thinks that her life's gone with Oliver, and then he makes her young again in her head, and then she's in the pool, and then it's Oliver at first, but then of course it's the Shadow King who's lying there and gets the intel out of her, and then after he disappears, it snaps back to her being present day age again, and she looks over and Oliver's at a distance. There was some nice, Legion tends to be quite good with symbolism, and I feel like that was a symbolic thing where she's been tricked, she was hooked in, the Shadow King got what he wanted, and it snapped back to, I mean she's still in the dream world, but
yeah,
it's I'm back to being my own age, I can see Oliver, he's away over there, it wasn't really him, she was manipulated. So there's elements I did kind of like the final scene after she knocks out Clark and she goes into the dream world with, or the telepathic world, whatever you want to call it, with Oliver, and it's this really dark, ominous thing, and she puts her hand, we end the episode there, and it's okay, she's been completely seduced by the dark side, if you will, at this point. So there was moments there. I liked the Minotaur behind Lenny. That was creepy.
I like whenever that thing shows up.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I like it. But it was definitely a weaker episode, and I think the fact that we're only hitting 10 minutes, and I feel like we've already covered everything I really wanted to talk about, is a symptom of that. Because I'm like, yeah, you had the scene with Melanie and Oliver in the frozen room, and he's like, oh, you should have just burned me, and I was like, again, I get the point of this is more manipulation, but I didn't feel like it was adding anything new that we really didn't know about her or their
No,
relationship.
I feel like for me, I felt like most of this episode. I think the Lenny stuff is maybe the only stuff that I don't feel this way. Is I felt like I was kind of just going through the motions. Like the Carrie and Kerry stuff with their side of the plan, it was like, okay, they're just filling out the plan. I didn't feel like I got a lot of strong character things from them.
Well, no, I like that scene in the restaurant where he says he's going to die someday, and she
Oh
almost
yeah, no, it's got that one scene.
very
Almost there.
immaturely. I mean, well, I liked all of the scenes though. Like,
No, they're enjoyable enough to watch. Don't
yeah,
get me
like
wrong.
when they're stealing the thing out, you got the music, the beat, the pace, like them working together, and like all that stuff was good. I think the Carrie stuff is pretty strong. I wouldn't put that stuff down.
No, fair enough. I didn't get as much out of it as you clearly. But you know, I just felt like it was stuff that you know we've been here before. We've done this already. It felt like, you know, to me the episode feels like it was spinning its wheels before we go into the ending.
I'll agree with that overall because I think the fact that the Melanie stuff's half the runtime makes it feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if there was someone else who had part of the plan to enact as well, and the idea with this episode is all the other pieces, all the other people who were, you know, implanted with the ideas were all doing their parts of the plan. If that was what this episode was, I think it might have worked.
No, that's fair. I think the less exciting part of the plan here for me is that it doesn't really matter to me what they do because they don't know what they're doing. They're just following the instructions, right? And we end up where we knew we were going to end anyway, you know, with Lenny with the car, right, in the desert, and that's fine. We know she's got a device weapon, but ultimately they're not really choosing to do a lot of the stuff. They're like, oh, this is what we do, so we'll just do that. I don't feel like I'm learning anything about the plan.
Yeah, I'll dispute that complaint. I feel like you don't have to feel like you learn anything about the plan per se. The Lenny's journey here is deciding to go through with it, even though she doesn't want to. That's the arc.
No, I agree. That's what I said. The Lenny stuff is the strongest part of the episode. But overall, in seeing the other side of the plan, you know, you're saying, oh, you should have seen another part of it. I don't feel like there is anything to see with most of the plan. Lenny's decision is the only
there
thing
isn't. I'm saying
see.
that if there was another character who had other parts to play in the plan, and that's what this episode felt like it probably should have been, but it wasn't because we didn't have that many. So half the runtime is this Melanie stuff that's just kind of there just to fill time. It's worth mentioning this is one of the shortest episodes of the season as well.
Yeah, it's only just 40 minutes.
Yeah, so it does clearly feel like this is the one that's kind of spinning. And I do wonder almost if when they split the last one into two, if some of the material that was going to be in this one maybe got jumped up to the next one.
Maybe
got pushed. I don't know. That's just pure speculation. But like, I think I don't necessarily have to understand because there is a fun element. Again, if there was more pieces falling into place, it would be fun just to see how they all fit together. But as it is, all we have is the Lenny part and the Carrie part because Clark's knocked out. Unless that's part of the plan as well. And it is worth mentioning at the end of the episode when she's walking around the halls and she's talking to Oliver, and everyone's looking at her weirdly as she's walking past them because she's just talking to herself. She does say, and she thinks that David's coming alone. She mentions, no, he gave the girl a note. He's coming alone. She doesn't know about that. So her theorizing last week that he maybe intentionally done this so that, you know, he would play it so that he knew Melanie was going to knock out Clark is actually kind of feeling more likely now, given this.
No, I agree with
scene.
that. Yeah, I think, you know, just what I was saying about the plan is, you know, with, you know, seeing all the pieces fall into place could be fun. But because it's only the two, and you know we've got the Carrie and Kelly one, all they're essentially doing is handing the parts over to Lenny, right? Ultimately.
Yeah, sure, yeah, that's the gist of it.
I don't feel like I needed to see it at all. Like I don't feel like I gained anything out of watching that because it was just the one part that lined up with Lenny. I don't feel like I got anything out of seeing this really.
I just had fun while I was watching it. I mean, I don't necessarily need it to blow my mind necessarily. It feels weird. We're debating this so much. I agree the episode's weak overall. Yeah. I just wouldn't be as harsh on the other elements. I think the Melanie sections, though, are pretty...
No, fair enough.
Pretty mind-numbing, pretty wheel-spinning, and, you know, there was no John Hamm, like, infomercial section this week.
No, which means we might be done with that for the season. I'm not sure we're going to get any in the last episodes.
I can see there being one more.
Maybe, yeah.
I can see
maybe
there being
one to tie it all together.
yeah, a final point kind of thing. And it is worth mentioning, like, you know, part of like what this episode was is the delusion of Melanie thinking, you know, all this stuff that Oliver's feeding into her. She's buying into the delusion, right? So thematically, it does fit into everything else. I mean, that's worth mentioning. Or even the idea that Kerry's not willing to accept that Carrie's going to die. Again, it's buying into the delusion. So I mean, there's elements thematically that are working with what's been set up in the season.
Yeah, and I will say this is the first episode of the season directed by Hawley, and I think
really?
that does show in some of the the Lenny montage that are very kaleidoscope-esque. The use of the split screen at the end for Melanie. I feel like we haven't got a lot of that this season.
There was some last episode, but there wasn't not been a lot this season.
There's not been a lot this season, whereas very heavy last season. That. You know, I did feel his influence on the style, if nothing else.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, this was a weaker episode. The Melanie stuff, I think her character, unfortunately, has been kind of a wash this season. There's not really been anything worthwhile with her. She's
not really done anything up till this episode, where we see, okay, here's everything she's been up to over the past 2 weeks,
which is not very much. I mean,
and
we had that one scene with Sid at the start of the season. Then we had her when David was going around saving everyone for their own mind, and she had her moment in that. But other than that, that's basically
it makes me question, though, because obviously this is something that I feel like we've missed with the year's jump, is for her. So she's struggling. She's not able to cope with the loss of Oliver, right, and all this, and that's why she's getting high. Has she been like this for a full year, or, you know, is this just... I feel like I've missed something in how she got to this stage.
I didn't feel like it's been a full year, but it's been a while. Like when Kerry's in trying to talk to her, hey, when are you coming back to work?
Yeah.
And hell, even that scene when she's talking to Kerry about, how do you know that both you and Carrie are real? What if you're his delusion, or what if he's your delusion? You know. So again, thematically, there's stuff coming in that's tying into
was,
things,
but that was another one where I was like, yeah, okay, we've kind of been over that already, though, right? We're between them two specifically.
No, we have. Like I say, the Melanie stuff was kind of rough and kind of tedious, to the point where when it cut to Carrie and Kerry, I was like, yes! Like, I was happy to see other characters, because her plot was not really doing much for me up until that point. And then I was actually glad that we kind of left Melanie for such a long time, because then it was swapping between two plots that I was kind of into. And then ultimately, you know, we came back to it. And, you know, the moment at the end, like I think this ending scenes with Melanie are fine. Like, they're definitely the most interesting ones when she's talking to Oliver, you know, after the fact.
Those are the ones that are tying into the plot and moving forward, rather than just showing us how we got to this stage, which was ultimately where we left last episode anyway. Yeah,
how we got to this stage wasn't that interesting. Last week when we heard his voice in our head, that was kind of all we needed, really.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's in there. Yeah. I didn't really need to see the journey of how.
No. And maybe we could have had one scene with how he manipulated her, because I thought that was probably the best part of that first chunk. But then it kept going. We got a montage of her inhaling smoke for 10 minutes. And then there was the scene in the icebox with the younger version sitting there, and she's talking to him about their relationship. And I didn't feel like I got a whole lot out of that scene. So,
no, me either.
No, rough week on Legion, but here's hoping the final two bounce right back. Yeah. I mean, most of the season's been really good. It's not like it's been...
No, it's true. I think I'm going to be really interested next week to see how it feels. You know, knowing it was supposed to be one long episode, and then ultimately it got split. Mm-hmm. And then we're getting it for over 2 weeks. I'm really intrigued to see how that feels at the end of next week, if it feels like a satisfying episode in its own right. Or if it does just feel like, okay, no, this is just half, and this is where we had to lop it.
I'm sure they'll do something to make it feel a bit more rounded off. But I don't know. It'll be a shame if it doesn't stick the landing of the season, though, because the last Hulu show we watched was season 3 of Fargo, which I thought had a weak ending, but you know, hopefully it sticks the landing. But the season's been pretty good overall. It's just this episode was a bit rough. So
yeah.
But now let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can do that. There's a link in the description, but otherwise that is us. So thank you once again for watching. We'll see you next time, guys. Have you got any vanilla?